we're experiencing the second flood. Many years ago, there was a flood and water covered the earth, and everybody got washed away by it, except for a few who were saved. The flood now is words. We're in such a flood of words and images that we almost don't know ourselves. It's like it's more than a torrent. It's like a total flood. Years past, we used to go to the library and get a book out and take it home and read it and take it back or lose it. We'd go and buy our textbooks for school, and words and knowledge was almost like a luxury, and only some people had it. Now there's so much flooding into our awareness, our consciousness, that the problem now is totally reversed. Now the problem is, how do we choose what words to let in? Or how do we choose to actually negotiate these words, because we don't even know what we're letting in and what's happening. And so the problem is we're in the threshold of not living anymore. We're in the threshold of just manipulating words and thinking thereby that we've lived. So we need to understand the dynamic of what we're in, because our very experience is being diluted, if not stolen from us. You can watch videos on any part of the world and watch it in much more detail and in better resolution or capability than if you went and visited that place, because they take it with drones and with special cameras. So it's almost easier to visit a country on your television, on YouTube. It's certainly easier to have relationships at a distance, because then you can filter what you want to say. It's like words and images take life away from us to the point where we almost don't live, but have done it all in one way or another. And it like takes away the tedium. It makes it so much easier. You don't have to buy a ticket to Russia. Just look at a program and see whatever you want to see. When you're tired, just switch off and go to bed. So it steals the reality. And it's a known fact that teenagers nowadays prefer to talk to each other via social media than face-to-face. It's becoming awkward speaking face-to-face, because it's almost like revealing parts of ourselves that we haven't discovered ourselves or aren't cognizant of ourselves. So it's harder. It's like revealing too much of ourselves. It's easier to send a message or to speak through a machine. And it's changing the way we see ourselves. It's changing the way we understand connection. It's changing the way we understand community, because our communities have now become places of similar words. We get defined by words, and the words label us, and so we join communities of label, not of experience, not of reality, not of dialogue, not of interaction. In fact, you don't join, it's rare now to find communities where you can disagree and you can work through something from different angles. We tend to be in communities that all agree or that all see in a particular way, because the words have so facilitated information or brought in so much information that in selecting, we select our own. And so we end up being birds of a feather who all stick together, because that's our kind of bird. We don't go with those birds. In fact, we think they're the enemy because they don't believe like us and we don't believe like them or choose like them. So we're in a situation where we being moved away from an identity into a what do they call it? A cohort, into a group, a similar group, or a group that has a particular identity. And we need to ask ourselves why that's happening and how it's happening, because it's very subtle. I mean, I remember reading a paper on persuasive technology, and I was frightened by it, because the science to get us to change and to follow a particular train of thought or way of being is so subtle that they can control us, they can manipulate us to do exactly what they want, to the point where, just work out how much screen time you spend a week, and you'll see how, we're drawn to it, and it rewards us, it feeds us with what we want. It basically supplies our needs. And our needs have been so differentiated and discerned that they can, with artificial media, supply those needs, which is why media is so powerful in our lives. We can't walk away from it. We actually get into a state of anxiety if we haven't got our phones or our television or whatever else we're watching. So that and it's even worse in children, because it feeds them in a particular way while they're forming, that by the time they form, they actually are connected to a way of being that is not independent. It's an attachment they aren't aware of and they can't break, not without a lot of difficulty. And so it's like, to understand that it's because we have needs, because we have hunger, we have a longing, we have a desire for connection, for growth, for understanding, for community. We have needs. And those are the very needs that the media actually taps into, and life taps into, because not only the media, go to a supermarket and it's like the choice is so vast. Someone said recently that he was in a large, very large supermarket. He said there was a whole aisle, like 100 meters of cereal, breakfast cereal. And he was so overwhelmed, he ran out of the shop. He couldn't face it. It get to the point where we are overwhelmed. We are spoiled for choice. We're spoiled by choice. And because there's so much choice, it's almost like makes it feel like we have everything at our fingertips. We have anything we want. It gives us a sense of omnipotence, a sense of power, a sense of ultimate choice, a sense of very far-ranging choice. We can choose anything as long as it's red or white. So it's given us choice, but actually it's taken our choice away, because it's shaped our choice around areas that can control us. So we feel we have a lot of choice, but I think we have a lot less choice than years gone by, where you had to take a trip and go to a shop and ask for this and get that. Now, how many of us ever go to the supermarket with a shopping list? You used to go with a shopping list, and then after a while it became superfluous, because you came back home with almost nothing that was on the shopping list, or certainly a lot more. And now, we go there and we sort of shop with our eyes. And we come out with a lot of stuff that maybe we didn't need, but, you must have this, and if you haven't got this, you haven't lived, and here's a bonus for that, and there's this, and there's that, and oh, look at this, I can get some. So it broadens it out. But in broadening it out, it actually, because we're limited in making our choices more abundant, they're actually taking the basic choices away from us. It's like we're spending ourselves on much more shallowly, so we haven't got anything to spend ourselves on deeply. If you had to go to a supermarket and choose one thing and find that one thing, or short list, and go home, we'd be in a different state. But we tend to wander in and wander around, and we do the same with life. We wander in and wander around and commit to very little, because we want to keep our options open. But in the process, we're actually diluting our choice to the point where it's almost irrelevant. Almost irrelevant. What does it matter which breakfast cereal you have? So, but yet you've walked up and down that aisle trying to choose the right one. And so it's invested yourself in something that's almost trivialized. So we have a lot of choice, but our very choices are diluted to the point where they are almost meaningless. And in terms of our life direction, we virtually have no choice. The society, the community, the place we're part of is basically choosing for us. The community, the cohort we're in, is making our choices. And because they're supplying our needs, and because we need them, we need the affirmation, we need the sense of belonging. We need to know that we're on the right side of opinion. We need to know that we're on the right side of fashion, of what everybody else is doing in our group. So we're bound by that. We find it difficult to be different. We certainly wouldn't say things that belong to the other camp. We say things that are within the camp. And so, in that sense, we've lost our choice. We are externalized in that context. And so, the very situation we're part of has shaped our outer lives. We are a product. We are part of a community. We are part of a group. And when we introduce ourselves, we tend to introduce ourselves in terms of those externals. I do this, I live there. The way we define ourselves is the way that group defines itself. Try defining yourself with nothing external. It's very hard. You know, I do this work, I'm married with so many children, I live here, my children go to that school, I went to this school, I studied at this university. So everything's external. If somebody says, "Who are you?" at first we think it's a trick question, or what are they asking? And then we ask ourselves, well, who's asking? Because they obviously want questions that relate to who they are. And we'll give them those questions. If it's at work, we'll tell them about our work experience. If it's in a club or church or something, we'll define ourselves by that. But it's all external. So we've all developed an external life that is very well developed, very strong, and very defining, because we're part of a group, and the group can be defined. And so when we ask ourselves, who am I? It's really a question of, am I willing to actually see myself for who I am? Or am I just allowing myself to be carried by a community, by an understanding, by an ethos that actually has developed me and us, and that's the group I'm part of. And we see the fragmentation in society. Before there was an effort to try and pull the different parts of society together, but society is now becoming more fragmented again than they were before. I mean, we went through a stage where we tried to integrate, but it's almost like we're coming out the other side and wanting more to separate. And so at universities, you'll get a res that's only for blacks, and another only for whites. And the Muslims go there, and the Christians go here. And so we're almost like letting those definitions shape us. And not only shape us peacefully, shape us aggressively, adversarially. Because we define ourselves over against. We're not that, we're this. We're not this, we're that. And so our external life has become quite a strong fabric that we are knitted into. And we're all part of that. But now we have to ask ourselves, so what choices do I have? Where do I fit in this? I mean, what can I do about it? Well, what we can do about it is begin to ask ourselves, what is my real identity? When we start asking that question, then we ask ourselves, well, in what way am I different? In what way am I unique? In what way do I choose what I want to be or how I want to be?